This week on the Orange Box podcast, we take a break from gaming news to talk more about some random topics. But first, on to the new Beautiful Bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 146. I am your host, the man who is all of the AI bots defending Sony on their posts, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me, as always, the man whose finger gunshots have a muzzle flash, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Not too bad overall. Saturday, No, it wasn't. It was Friday. Friday, No, it was Saturday. Saturday, I tried making some, pulled pork sandwiches, some, brown sugar pulled pork sandwiches, based off of a recipe I just saw online. I said, I've never made pulled pork sandwiches before. I will give it a shot and see what happens. Overall, I'm pretty satisfied with how things turned out. I think I had to adjust some stuff with the recipe just because the amount of pork I had bought didn't exactly match one-to-one with the sauce recipe, because that was it was for pork, but it wasn't for pulled pork. I was just trying to make sure that everything matched up, so I had to adjust things a bit here and there, but I think it turned out pretty decently. And I also went to go with that. I saw another recipe for... It was called, I can't remember the exact name, but it was like a pesto tortellini pasta salad. So tried that. That turned out well enough. I think one thing I did was the recipe, I think even though pesto is definitely a strong sauce, I think they didn't add enough to it. So I just had to add a little bit more to that. And maybe if I add some olive oil, that would have helped with like distributing the pesto throughout the salad, but overall that wasn't too bad either. But yeah, so all in all, I think that was a pretty decent experiment, and I might make those again in the future. One other thing that's happened is I've been I've been trying to get a resolution for a purchase I made on eBay, where I bought something and waited, and I was like, all right, that's fine. I thought maybe the person might be on vacation or something, because they didn't respond or ship something out, and I was like, that's fine. I will wait until after the 4th to contact them and whatnot, because I made my purchase on the 16th of June. And just hadn't heard anything, and so after that point I sent a message to the seller and I was like, hey, just see if everything's still going on, if everything's fine. Didn't get a response, so I waited another week, and I went to cancel the order, but then I guess for whatever reason eBay was like, yeah, you can't cancel this request now, it's been rejected. And I'm like, well, and they said you should receive your order by June 29th. I thought, June 29th? This is July 10th. I mean, unless you're talking about June 29th of 2027, then yeah, I'll wait. But I'm pretty sure I was promised in 2026. So I then went for a request to request a refund. So eBay now says to wait until... What is it, the 21st? Wait until, I think, either Thursday or Friday.
Okay.
And then if the seller doesn't do anything, then ask for them to step in, which I'm thinking to myself, well, it's been over a month since I made my purchase and nothing has happened whatsoever. So I'm like, honestly, guys, I know this is like an automated thing, but I think common sense would automate that, hey, more than 30 days has passed, but we'll see what happens with that. I mean, I'm not too bugged out if nothing completely gets resolved, because it's really just $40 I would have been spending, but still, I would like to get what I bought, or at least get a refund at the very least. So we'll see what happens later this week. And then I was going to go back, and I went back and I still wasn't satisfied with my one video I was working on, so I was going to go back and add one more thing just for clarification. But then, unfortunately, which this was what happening yesterday, last evening, I was working a bit over just because there was an emergency with one of our editors, which pushed back when things went to me, which pushed back when I could actually finish everything. So by the time I had finished, I was just ready to crash at that point. So unfortunately, that has further delayed like when I would finish the video up. But that is something I still want to like finish up though. But yeah, that is everything that's happened this week.
All right. Well, hopefully you can get everything resolved with eBay, and that'll just be handled either way. Definitely don't want you to lose your money. I mean, at least it wasn't a lot of money, but still.
Oh yeah,
it sucks. So. All right. Well, on my end, first of all, I'll just mention to anyone watching the video version, I am experimenting with different layouts for the logo and stuff. So, like right now, instead of having the logo on the bottom right-hand side or right hand from when you're looking at the screen, instead it's in the center, the bottom center. So I'm trying that out. I may do some other experiments with it. I kind of just want to mix things up and maybe try to, I don't know, figure out a way to make things a little more interesting. I don't know. I kind of get bored of looking at the same thing all the time when I'm editing. So yeah, we'll see if that sticks. The logo's still in the bottom right for all the video clips. It's just for the main thing that right now it's in the bottom center. So that aside, as far as my week goes, Saturday we had I worked on and finished my video, finally. It took way longer than it should have. It was almost a year after I originally said that I would eventually have one up, covering the downsides of PC gaming, but I'm pretty satisfied with it. I did find a couple things, like because of the way that the rendering was going with, backing up, when I'm editing it in DaVinci Resolve, because there's so many like clips and everything else in there, it seems to lag quite a bit at times. And so like if I'm trying to watch back through the whole thing, it's lagging constantly, like it'll stutter and whatnot. And so I didn't really get a chance to fully go back through the entire thing. I kind of just had to assume that it was right based on the work I had been doing as I went along. And so I hadn't watched it until after I had uploaded it to my channel and then shared it with you. And then I watched the fully rendered version on Sunday afternoon and noticed a handful of things I wanted to fix. Like one of the biggest things was I noticed that the footage I had for Ghost of Tsushima, I had forgotten about the fact that back when I recorded that was before I figured out that it was better to record directly through NVIDIA's recording software instead of doing it through OBS, because OBS, at least by default, was doing like a lower resolution, really pixelated picture and stuff, and it just looked awful. And I thought, this is supposed to be high and ultra settings, and it doesn't look anywhere near that nice. It looks awful. So between that, which I'll get into the little tiny bit I played of that game in a bit, between that and then just a handful of other like little things, like changing some of the text on so like, because each of the different video clips I have has text saying what game it was, what it was running on, and that sort of thing. There's a handful of ones I wanted to change. There's a couple of the videos where when they were like set up as a collage, there was accidentally like a little bit of a gap in between the two videos, or a gap on the side or something, and I didn't want it to be like that. I want it to be completely seamless, just the video on there. So there was just a handful of things I wanted to fix. So I just kind of like went through, started watching it. As I came across things, I said, okay, I'm going to fix that. Then continued watching, found the other thing I need to fix that. and so on and so forth, and then re-rendered, re-uploaded, and published on Monday. So that video is up on my channel finally, and we'll see beyond that, but at least I got the thing done that I said I would do. And yes, at some point I still need to do things about misconceptions of PC gaming. There's a handful of other things in that line of topics. I just don't know when it's going to happen. I'm not going to promise anything. I'm basically saying I would like to do these at some point. I just don't know exactly when it's going to be, because the time it takes can be lengthy. So anyway, apart from that, I mean, obviously we had, normal church stuff on Sunday, played again this week, and something kind of funny with that. I mean, just fairly small, but I got this new like effects pedal set up that I have for my guitar, and it's not doing anything like distortion or anything like that. It's just kind of like making it sound a bit brighter and fuller. And one of the things that the main pedal has is you tap a button to be able to tune your guitar silently. And so I had pressed that to try and tune my guitar, and it wasn't picking it up. And I was trying to figure it out. The guy who had helped me set up asked me, did you need to turn up the volume on your guitar? And so I tried turning that up a little bit and stuff. And eventually I got it working. I don't even know what made it work versus not work. But the thing is that I hadn't set my volume back down to where it was supposed to be normally. And so then when immediately when I was going to start playing for, letting people know we're starting up, I strum once and it's like super loud, and I'm like, and just turn it back down and then get back to playing, and then they adjust things in the back, and yeah. So like I said, fairly minor, but there's that. I guess I did forget to mention Saturday we had the birthday party for my son. I mean, obviously his birthday was the previous week, but because of the way timing worked out, it was Saturday that we actually had his party. And so he got some cool stuff. There's actually one thing that he got that I've never seen this before. So there's like, it's one of those like remote control, it's a gecko. And I'm like, okay, nothing all that special. It's just something cool, 9-year-old boy would love, of course. But it actually does something really cool that I've never seen a toy do before, and I didn't even know this was possible. I don't know how it works. I haven't looked it up. It can actually climb up the walls. You can put it on the wall, and then it can climb around, and it can move around, and you can control it with a little controller. I have no idea how it works. I don't know if it's some sort of like suction mechanic or something that it uses, but it's like, that is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. Yeah. Because it's just like, they never had that when I was a kid. And I like, once again, I have no idea how this thing works. I mean, it's very clear this was not an expensive toy, but it just does something really cool. And I mean, I think it runs through the battery really fast. It scares the crap out of cats. They put it up on the wall behind me, and the cats are laying on the bed, and they're watching this thing crawl around, and the hairs on their backs are standing up. It was really funny to watch, but obviously it's like, you don't touch the cats at that point, because they might scratch or bite you, because they don't know what to think. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, otherwise not really much of anything going on that I can think of. Various cooking things, nothing overly exciting, but yeah.
All right. Well, I'm definitely glad you got the video out, and that it's definitely met your satisfaction, and that you've put this chapter behind you. Yeah, I do need to go back and actually leave a comment. Like I said, I was going to do that yesterday, but I was just crashed after work and whatnot. But after watching the test video, though, I'll definitely come out and say that, you've been an undercover pony confirmed now, okay? You said that PC gaming is horrible, and at the conclusion, you just said, should have just bought a PS5 Pro, bro.
Yeah. Yep, I held up my PS5 Pro, and I said, see, this is the real console. This is what you should be playing on, because it's far better than anything else you'll ever get. Yeah, it was kind of cool, though. So I tagged all the different salt mining channels that I could think of that I had, watched over the years, and one of them I tagged is a guy who hasn't put any videos out in quite a while. He's like a European guy. Atomics24 is the name of his channel. But he used to put out, fairly regular Salt videos, and he hasn't done it in a while, and he actually did watch the video and commented and appreciated the fact that I still remembered him, even though he hadn't done anything in a while, and actually said that he thought I made some good points. So it's like, hey, good. I'm glad. A Salt Miner watched my channel, even if it's someone who hasn't done any content in a while, watched the video, and didn't feel the need to roast me. Even though I said, hey, if you have something to roast me about, go ahead and roast me, because then at least I'll know, hey, this is what you guys think in comparison. So, yeah. All right. Well, all that shilling stuff aside, what have you been playing this week?
All right. So I went and downloaded the demo after your glowing recommendation last week for Acrolytes, and I must say, it's got me very intrigued. So it definitely is a Super Metroid-esque game, and I'll also be honest. I was a bit uncertain about how the controls, particularly with the aiming, would handle, and like I said, I wasn't sure if it was going to be like Metroid Prime 2D or if it was going to be along the lines of Metroid Dread. But after playing through it, to me personally, it feels more like it's Metroid Dread. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, so it felt fine to use the right stick, since I was accustomed to doing that for Dread. And didn't feel too bad. Now, the one thing I would say is, or I will eventually do, is try to remap the face buttons to the rear buttons, whether I'm using the Steam Deck or if I'm using my Steam controller, just because I'm going to have my thumb on that joystick the entire time. And, trying to jump or, or anything like that, or try to dash is just not optimal if you're going to, try also be aiming at the same time while you're trying to maneuver as well. So that's one thing I would say I would probably change personally. But of course, obviously, if you don't have a button with, paddles, rear paddles, then it's not really going to do much good for you. But that's something I just think would be good. But I enjoyed what I've played so far. Now, like Super Metroid, this is definitely I have no idea where I'm going.
Yep, right.
Even with the map, I still find myself running around the area twice before I find, oh, this is where I used that new ability that I got, a bit earlier. And so haven't completed the demo. I went through, I don't know how long the demo is, but I made it through at least one boss fight, which admittedly I died the first time, but that was because I took a short break, because originally I played it on my Steam Deck, and then I had to then I played it on my PC, and I had to transfer the save file from the deck to the PC, since it doesn't have cloud save support. But I forgot the controls for a bit, so I died the first time. But then once I remembered, I was like, okay, cool. Now I understand what I need to do to actually, survive the fights. Yeah. So that wasn't too bad overall. But yeah, so after that, I've essentially just been going back to more exploring, more where do I go, and that's just essentially where I am right now. So like I said, I don't know how long the demo is, if there's a point I reach and then it's like, all right, thanks for playing, wishlist our game, or if there's gonna be another boss fight or something like that. But like I said, I've enjoyed what I've thought so far, and similar to what you said, I just can't help but feel like I'm just playing a space pirate from Metroid, and it's making me think then, all right, this is like the Halo 2 of Metroid, where you're playing as the Arbiter. It's like, yeah, you're just playing as a space pirate now, and then you meet up with Samus later on at some point, and it's like, all right, cool, that sounds pretty cool actually. But yeah, definitely enjoy this demo, and I look forward to the full version of the game when it releases. But then I have been playing more of the addictive game known as Palworld, and I've pretty much caught up to where I was in my original save file.
Nice.
I think like the one thing is I have to beat the the third tower boss, because I started up from last week, from last time I played last week. I went ahead and fought Lily, and she was definitely a whole lot easier this time around than in the pre 1.0 version. Also, I can confirm she also had less health, so I do think across the board all the bosses have less health, but like I said, you also have less time to defeat them as well. And I guess on that note, I also noticed that her arena is definitely a whole lot different. Before, she seemed to have the same arena fight that Zoe had, but this one actually matches her environment. Good. So instead of just being the same arena you have for the bosses, it looks like they're actually changing them to shape what each boss is like, which I think is a nice change, nice attention to detail. Also, it seems like she has a couple new moves that I didn't notice before. Like there's a huge poison AoE attack that I was like, oh crap, I need to like back off right now before something bad happens. So that definitely caught me by surprise, but it wasn't too big of an issue for me. But then I also eventually later on I decided, you know what? I want to go over to the oil rig, and I want to see what that's about, because it's a huge base area. It looks cool. And also I had finally got an assault. Well, it was just a regular rifle. It was a semi-automatic rifle. Okay. So I said, you know, I'm going to try this thing out, and I'm going to go in there and, you know, just see what it's like. It is probably one of the best. I mean, as much as I enjoyed the smaller, I can't remember what they're called, but like the small base fortresses, the full-on oil rig is just a great fight, just because you have the different enemies stacking. Now, of course, some of them try to sneak up behind them and you shoot them. If they don't go down, they take a second to like evaluate, wait, what just hit me? And then, you know, start attacking you. But overall, it was just enjoyable. And then sometimes, you know, the enemies will have their own pals. And I made the mistake because there are these turrets that just that shoot at you. And I thought, okay, I just have to shoot them. I wasted all of my limited shotgun ammo on several turrets. And it wasn't until I found the third turret, and I'm just like trying, like, I am barely whittling this thing's health down with my crossbow. And I realized there's a panel in front of it that you can go and just type deactivate, and it turns it off. And I'm like,
I don't hate you. There you are.
I just felt so stupid at that point, because I'm like, why did I not see that before? And even when I went back and watched the footage, I was like, that panel was right there. All I had to do was walk up to it. But the funny thing, though, I thought was because I was so intimidated, because that thing is just like firing down upon you. If you strafe around, it literally cannot hit you, because it's just like the bullets are going to your right or to your left. So if you just keep on strafing, it follows you, but just does not hit you. So I was like, yeah, I mean, at least I don't take damage that way. But yeah, overall, that fight was good. I did also come to a conclusion where my equipment is finally reaching the limit of I cannot deal enough damage with the weapons I have, which is partially why I went and got the semi-auto rifle. But also, my armor is just under-leveled for what it is. So, and then part of me was thinking to myself, well, I could either because I did unlock the upgrades to craft better armor, but I said, if I go out and explore some more, I can find schematics for improved versions of those armor sets, where I can get, you know, better defense, and I won't have to worry about wasting any resources to craft another set of armor that's just going to be better anyway. So, unfortunately, it was a while before I decided I just need to go ahead and suck it up and just craft this armor, because I'm going to get demolished, which did happen to me several different times. So I did do that, and even later on, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and also try to make my base more efficient. So I scrapped everything and just started from scratch and made it a multi-floor base. So I've got like the first floor is dedicated to, I think, just planting and harvesting crops. Second floor is going to be dedicated to mining, and as I get more resources, since I burned out a lot of them, I'm gonna have another floor that's dedicated to, I think, just like basic manufacturing, like PAL spheres and ammo and stuff like that. So that way I can have stuff going on while I'm away, and make sure that I have everything, or have sufficient supplies when I get back. But yeah, so not really too much other than that has happened. Yeah, that's really everything that's happened with me and Palworld so far. But like I said, I'm pretty much caught up to where I was beforehand. I just need to beat the third boss, and then I would essentially be where I need to be.
Nice. So how many hours did you have in Palworld before 1.0?
Before 1.0, I want to say it was around maybe 99.
Okay.
Something like that.
And then
like, as of now, it's... I want to say, like, let me quickly check and see. I think it's, like, between 117 and 122.
Okay.
Okay, 124, actually.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, like, roughly around a third of the time it took me to do what I did originally.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, that just reminds me of, when I went back to Dark Souls 2 after I lost my save and I had like 60 hours or something, and then I went back and I sped through it, and your guy completely caught up in like 15 hours or something. But yeah. Good stuff. Oh, regarding Acrolite, so what was the question I was going to ask you? I've already forgotten what it was. It was something I thought about when you were talking about it, and I don't remember what it was, so maybe it'll come back to me. But one thing I definitely will say with that one is that I agree very much on the controls being more Dread-like. Oh, I remember what it was I was going to ask you. I probably just missed it in the tutorial, but how do you slide under stuff?
It's the... actually, I can't remember if it's actually... it's the dash button and crouch, but I think it's an ability you actually get.
Oh, okay. All right, that would be why.
Because I did find something else later on after the initial dash one.
Gotcha, okay. That makes more sense, because I was like, I could have sworn... I mean, I don't remember seeing anything about that, but I wasn't sure if I just missed it, so okay, that makes way more sense. But yeah, one thing I've definitely just decided with that one is that, I mean, I enjoyed what I played at the demo, but I've played enough to where I'm sold on the game, and I don't really want to play anymore. I figure I'll just wait until after the full game comes out, and then I'll probably end up grabbing it and play it so that I get to experience more of it fresh without kind of feeling like I'm just gonna have to redo all of this, So,
fair,
good stuff. All right, so my list ended up being reasonably long this week. I think I'm going to have a lot to mention, but since we don't have any news topics tonight and we're just talking about other stuff, I figure, I'll take my time here. Try not to make it too long, though. I'm going to kind of go in just sort of an order of how long I spent playing the games rather than the order I actually played them in. So, one I definitely played the least was the Pokemon Red recompilation that just came out today. And so this one is interesting, mostly because of the fact that, I mean, for one, it is a native PC version of the Pokemon Red. But the most interesting thing about it is that the load times and the frame rate are so much higher than the original that it was throwing me off. Because, like, I've played the original so many times, and so, like, when it just transitions almost essentially instantaneously from battle out and, so on and so forth, I'm just like, whoa, there was no load there. What happened? It was just way too fast. And then, of course, it's also, not running at 15 frames per second or whatever it was running on the original version of the game. And so it's like, I'm moving a lot faster and everything else. And I checked the options in there, and it's not like, oh, the speed is set higher or anything, although I did briefly just turn it up to 100 times speed just to see how fast it was. It was like, zzz, zzz. It was crazy. But like you have different visual filters on this game. One of the things that you'll see in the gameplay here is that the you can set it so that the camera's askew, so that instead of just being directly overhead, it can be kind of like an angle, so your character kind of stands a little bit more, not quite 3D, but just to where it kind of gives a little more depth, I guess you could say. And you can change color filters, so like it started out on the Game Boy color filters, and then I switched it over to the red color filters, which basically makes it look like gold and silver did in terms of the color scheme. I was like, that's kind of cool having that in the original game. So that was pretty neat. But yeah, so it's been I didn't play much at all. I mean, I basically just played. I got my Pokemon, went up to pick up the parcel for Professor Oak, went back, got the Pokedex and the map, and then that was it. That's basically all I did. So it was like 10 minutes maybe that I played, but it definitely was a lot faster than normal because of the simple fact that there was basically no load times whatsoever, and everything just moved so much faster that it was really throwing me off. So like part of me is almost like, I almost would rather just play the version I purchased on my 3DS instead, because the faster frame rate is just messing me up. But no, I mean, I don't know that I'm actually like really playing this at all right now. It's more just the fact that it exists that's really cool. And I was reading some of the comments in the video that talked about it, and said that some people said that there's also other recomps of the different Game Boy and Game Boy Color Pokemon games, including Fire Red and Leaf Green. So I'll definitely be keeping my eyes peeled for those. I may end up at some point, like I'm waiting for it to be discounted, but I may end up grabbing one of those on the Switch just for the sake of, because the fact that I can actually purchase them, it's like, yeah, I might as well buy a copy and then I'll just play the native PC port on my Steam Deck. But, oh yeah, also forgot to mention the video mode. You can set it so that it does widescreen. So I think there's supposed to be some other stuff added to it as well. Now, it's not widescreen in battles, but that's just because of the way that the thing is designed. I'm hoping that maybe they'll add a mod in the future to make it possible to have widescreen for the full game, because I think that would be nice. Just give it a little more freshness, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's still pretty cool. So that's all I really have to say about that one. The next one that I played the least was Ghost of Tsushima. And basically with that one, it was that, of course, I needed to record some footage. And even though I wasn't going to be able to do it on my my previous build of the PC, at least not without installing it to my kid's PC, I just realized, oh, you know, I haven't actually tried this out on my my current build at all. And I will say already, I was exceedingly rusty on the combat. I was messing up constantly because I wasn't remembering the differences in some of the buttons, especially because I've, you know, played some other Assassin's Creed games, and those have very different controls, and then also remembering to use the different stances and all that. So I was messing up a ton. But I will say, so initially, like I had it doing 1440p ultra on everything, and was just curious to see what it would run at. It didn't run great. It was like, I think it was getting 60 to 80 frames per second. And I might be remembering wrong. I may have still had DaVinci Resolve running in the background, not doing anything, but that may have been eating up some resources too, so that may be part of the reason. But I looked up some optimized settings and modified a couple things, and the game still looked incredible, but the frame rate jumped up to like 140 to 170, while still looking absolutely amazing. And I mean, it's definitely running a lot better than it was when I did the Legends mode with a buddy, where when I had upgraded my CPU but not my GPU yet. And so, yeah, looks really amazing. The game is still great. But I'm not actually playing it right now. I was just continuing a little bit in New Game Plus to get some footage, and that was the extent of what I did. I played like 15, 20 minutes maybe. But I did, of course, play some more Salt and Sacrifice. And this one, I took out, I think, 3 proper bosses, and then a handful of the mages, most of which are like the unnamed ones, but some of them I fought multiple times, just based on when they show up, because a lot of the unnamed ones will just randomly spawn, like monsters and Monster Hunter. But the I'm trying to think of what there is to note about that. I definitely made some good progress. If I play some more in the near future, it will be basically just... I'm pretty sure I know where to go next based on an ability I gained pretty recently. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to do that soon whenever I decide I want to play some more. There was another game that definitely drew my attention away from that, and so I don't know how soon I'll be jumping back into this one. But we'll kind of see. We'll play it by ear. I may end up even just... I'm considering bringing my Switch 2 with me on Thursday when I go to the office, and then just playing some more Salt and Sacrifice there, but I haven't fully decided. I will note that there's one boss in particular. I can't remember the name of it, even though the footage will come up here shortly, and then I'll remember the name of it. But it's like this, this monster that is like hanging from the ceiling and is like shaped like a heart, but then like souls will possess him, and then he expands and gets arms and legs and then starts attacking you. What I discovered with this boss, because he hits pretty hard if he hits you, but if you hit him enough while he's still in the heart phase, like even after he gets possessed by some of those soul things, it'll basically knock the souls out and keep him back in that position where he's just in the heart spot, and so then he's not attacking you. It's just the spirit things that are attacking you, and they don't do anywhere near as much damage. So once I figured that out, when I actually was able to beat him, instead of having to deal with him and the spirits, I basically just kept hitting him while he was in this heart form. And then I was able to kill him without him actually being able to really hit me. I think he hit me. I think he got out of his heart form like once and hit me. And then other than that, he basically, every time he would get out of it, I would hit him hard enough to where he would collapse back into his heart form. And then it was easier to actually take him out. But, let's see here. What is it called? That was called the Sap Blood Heart was the name of it. Okay, so now that that's shown up again, I'm trying to think of which game I need to talk about next. I guess it's going to have to be the next game that I played a lot of, but it's not the game I played the most. And that is the PS3 version of Demon's Souls. And oh, perfect. It's starting up right at the very beginning of the video. So, yeah, I've played some of this on my Steam Deck. I have played up through the second proper boss, because the tutorial boss you're not actually supposed to win. You can beat him, but he's difficult, mostly because of the fact that you don't hit very hard and he hits very hard, and if you die, it just automatically takes you to the main starting area. If you beat him, then you get to warp to the next area. There's a bunch of items you can pick up, which are useful, and then you will scripted die to the Great Dragon God, or whatever he's called. Just like this massive dragon thing just smashes you and you're dead. There's nothing you can do. It's a cutscene. Nothing you can do about it. You are going to die no matter what. It's just a matter of whether you die to the boss or not. So I fought that boss, and I decided, you know what? Even though the load times for doing so are pretty annoying, I'm going to use save states because I can. And mostly because of the fact that this is the only... If you can't beat him... I mean, if you die to him, you can't come back and fight him again. Now, granted, you do have other opportunities to fight this enemy later in the game. I think he shows up at least once more, maybe twice. And there's no trophy associated with beating him, but I wanted to do it because it's like, okay, he's very similar in some ways to like the Taurus demon, or not Taurus demon, the Asylum demon, and the other versions of the Asylum demon. So I really wanted to beat him. And I didn't use him like so much to where it was every 5 seconds I was using him like after every hit or anything. But it's more like, okay, I did a decent chunk of damage to his health while he's raising himself up in the air to slam down. I did a save state. It takes a while for it to save the save state, and then loading it back up. It takes a while for it to reload. And I did that a few times through the fight in order to actually beat him. Eventually, I figured out that the best way to beat him was to not try to attack him from the front, even though if you're close to his body, most of the time you can hit him without getting hit, but just to move behind him. Because if you move behind him, then it's a lot easier to actually hit him. I mean, it's usually like, okay, I'll do a couple of hits and then move away because he'll start to rotate, but his attacks will not hit you if you're standing behind him. As long as you stand enough behind him to where you're not like right next to his side, to where if he swings his axe, then he hits you. So, that's why if you're watching the footage, you will have noticed that there's a couple spots where like the screen goes black for a second and then comes back up, and it's just because of the way the save state worked out for that. So, and I had to come through the footage and find, okay, this is the spot where I got to this point, and then find the spot where I actually like progressed forward before my next save state so that I could get it all compiled properly. But yeah, that was pretty cool. Of course, this game is running 720p 60 frames per second with a patch that you can just apply. And there's, so after I got killed by the dragon god, I went to the first 2 areas which are connected to each other, and beat the bosses for those. Something that I didn't know, because previously when I had tried out this game I hadn't gotten that far, is that there's no like bonfire equivalents throughout the level. And so basically each one is, you go through the whole thing, there might be a way to unlock a shortcut that'll get you back to the main bonfire thing, but that's the extent of what you have. And since there's no like Estus flasks or equivalent, at least not early on, I don't think there is at all. It's more like Dark Souls 2, where you have health items you can pick up that enemies randomly drop, and some that you can find obviously or purchase. So I definitely abused the save states a lot more in that first area. Like, I wasn't originally going to, but because of the fact that there was no sort of bonfire mechanic, I was just like, I just don't feel like having to redo all this stuff. And granted, it's not like it eliminates all the progress you've made. Like, if you've gone through an area and you've already picked up all the items and taken out like certain enemies that are appear one time, and then when you kill them they're gone, I mean, that all stays, but it's just more in terms of having to go all the way back to the beginning of an area, basically just adding a very long run back until you find one of the shortcuts that reduces the length of that. And so yeah, but then once I actually got to the first boss, the first proper boss was actually very easy. I was able to beat him on my first try without any problems. And so that helped a lot. But like there's this one section in that first level where where it's completely optional. You don't have to do it. The guide that I looked at didn't even say to do it, but I wanted to do it. There's 2 dragons that are laying down off to the side in this area, and one of them is like awake and active, and the other one's just kind of laying there, but will swing his tail around. There's a bunch of items you can pick up, like really good items, and like a very strong fire defense shield and like a fire defense ring, and then some health items, that sort of thing. And I decided, okay, I'm gonna get all these things. So I would go in, grab whatever I could, and then like walk off the edge, because there's like a little ledge below a cliff that's, you know, not a big drop, but it's enough to protect you from the dragon that breathes fire. And, you know, would get what I needed from there, and then save state and run up and try to grab the other items. And I died plenty of times, but eventually I got to it. So there was that. And then once after I, you know, went back and got my essentially humanity restored, for lack of a better explanation, I went back into the level, and because you get like a bonfire thing that appears after you defeat the boss, the first boss, and then you can just continue on from there to go on to the next portion of, or the next like level thing. And this one, it's like a long bridge with various doors and whatnot, and you're dealing with enemies firing stuff at you, and then you're also dealing with that dragon flying overhead and, you know, killing you if you're not careful. And there's like an underground, an area underneath the bridge that you can go through to avoid the dragon more, but it only goes so far before you have to get back up on top. And then you have to deal with enemies at the very end of the bridge in order to get into the next area that lets you fight the next boss. And so I fought the next boss, and this one I used the save states a little bit, but not nearly as much as with that tutorial boss. And this boss is called the Tower Knight, and it's basically just kind of like, if you think of, I want to call him the Iron Giant. That's not what he's called. The boss in oh gosh, what is the name of that place? Not Honorlando, the place right before Honorlando.
Sen's Fortress?
Sen's Fortress, thank you. He reminds me of that, except he's basically just like a big guy with a big shield. And his arena has like stairways around it, and then there's a bunch of smaller guys just firing arrows and stuff at you. And so I figured out pretty quickly you're supposed to, you know, walk around, you're supposed to go up and around the arena, kill all the guys that are firing stuff at you so that they're not getting in your way, and then you go back down and you fight the Tower Knight. And the way his boss fight works is, of course, well, for one, when you're up in the upper areas, he doesn't come up to you, but he will like fire energy beams at you, and the walls there do a good job shielding you from those attacks, so you're pretty safe up there. Then when you get down to him, you can't do much of any damage to any part of his body except for his head, but you can't hit his head unless you hit his feet a bunch first. You hit his feet, and it basically just kind of like pierces his armor, and eventually, after you hit it enough times, then he will fall over, and then, assuming you don't get squished in the process or knocked back and can't get to him quickly enough, then you can run over to his head and attack his head and do a bunch of damage to it. And so, yeah. I'm definitely like, I've gone into a couple of like other areas besides these just for the sake of checking stuff out, but I didn't really progress any further than that. And I don't know that I'm really playing this right now, because I haven't played it since whenever it was that I told you I was playing it. So, or maybe like the day after. I think it was probably Wednesday was the last time I played it, maybe Thursday. But yeah, like I do like this game though. I definitely like it. I look forward to playing more in the future. I just don't know right now if I want to play it. I definitely need to not rely on the save states, because it does feel kind of like cheating. I mean, it's not exactly, because it's like, yeah, I still have to beat the boss, but it definitely like makes things a lot easier using the save states. So more likely than not, as I progress, I will not bother with save states any further, and I'll just, you know, play the rest of the game like I would any other Souls game. But yeah, I still like what I've played for sure, and it's definitely cool getting to experience it in a very different, coming from a very different perspective from the first time that I tried Demon's Souls on the PS3. Back when I don't even know if I made it to the tutorial boss when I tried it on PS3. And it wasn't like, oh, I died. It was just more at the time, because of the environment feeling like kind of dark and depressing, I just didn't want to play any further. And that was the reason why for so many years I did not even bother trying to play a Souls game. And then, of course, Elden Ring got me hyped enough to where I finally decided to try them out, and the rest was history. So, but yeah, I definitely like what I've played, and I look forward to playing some more when I get to it. I just don't know when it's going to be. I would say that there is a reasonable possibility that after I finish Salt and Sacrifice that I might play Demon's Souls the rest of the way, because, I mean, there's just nothing quite like a FromSoft Souls game. And, you know, it is a game that's kind of been on like, okay, I want to play this. I want to play all the Souls games. And I played, obviously, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, with 1 in particular, obviously, being multiple times. And I played, you know, parts of Sekiro and Elden Ring, but I haven't finished either of those, and Bloodborne. So yeah, this one I think is part of the reason why I think it might be the next one, is because of the fact that it does run very well on Steam Deck, and because of the fact that it's because it works so well as a handheld game. So there's that. But the game I have definitely played the most this week, because I was able to get it on Friday using a combination of $20 Steam credit that I had on the account I originally created for my wife. I don't even remember why I put $20 on there. There was some reason I had to put some credit on there back then, and it just never got used. But I used that plus, you know, $40 out of pocket, and had that account gift the game to me. and my wife doesn't use the account. It's actually the account my kids use. And so I've been playing Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. And so first thing I want to mention with this, the footage that's playing right now is actually side-by-side comparison between the original Black Flag and Black Flag Resynced. And it's just basically the opening section of the game up through right when you defeat the assassin. For some reason, I'm already forgetting the guy's name, but yeah, it's so I did actually play a little bit of the original Black Flag, installed that and ran that just for the sake of doing this recording, because I played through the opening section on Resynced, and then I was like, you know, I want to do a side-by-side comparison, so I went ahead and played that, recorded it. It didn't end up being a perfect comparison, mostly because of the fact that I got my I didn't follow the exact same path both times for chasing the assassin. So I had to like split up the footage a little bit to make it work, but it was kind of interesting going back to the original, not just after, you know, the little tiny bit I played of Resynced before that, but just because it's been a while since I played the original, and of course I love the original, but playing the original again, it actually felt a bit more clunky compared to the remake, which was a little surprising to me. And not like drastically so, it was more just the movement didn't feel quite as fluid. And the movement isn't like drastically changed from one to the next, but it was still just enough to where it was noticeable. And so there's that. But as far as Resynced goes, actually, I guess I do need to back up. With Black Flag, with the original, I forgot to put on any sort of frame rate counter, but I think it might have actually been capped at 60. So I'm not positive on that. I might have to boot it up again just to see how it actually runs, if there's a way to uncap the frame rate, because there might not be. I might even just look that up first. But with the remake, if I do everything on Ultra, I'm getting like 40 to 60. But that's including having the ray tracing at Ultra, and just like, it is ridiculous. It looks extremely good, but it's also just way too much for the performance you get. But when I did the optimized settings, 1440p, of course, it still looks incredible. I'm getting over 100 FPS, and I'm still like really happy with the performance. It's like it looks extremely nice, and it's a very just I'm surprised at how good of a remake this is. I mean, the stuff we had seen definitely looked really promising, of course. And there's some stuff that's changed, and I'll get to that. But I'm very impressed with how good of a job they did with being faithful to the original while also doing some things different. Some of which initially I didn't like, and that I've grown to actually appreciate. But obviously the biggest thing is visually it looks significantly better. I mean, the first one it still looks good, even though the character models definitely are very dated. But it's not like horrible. The remake, though, just every bit of detail, especially as you're watching the comparison, the side-by-side comparison, it's really impressive. And one thing I will say about this, when I compare it to like the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, Metal Gear Solid 3, I feel like with Delta, it was a much better looking one with a couple of quality of life improvements, but nothing so dramatic to where it felt necessary. And while I would say this technically isn't a necessary remake, I also feel like it did a lot more in terms of quality of life improvements to where it actually feels like a worthwhile thing. Whereas like with Delta, I have to say, yeah, it is a very great looking game. It is visually impressive, but it's nothing to where I feel like it adds enough to make it more worthwhile than the original. Especially because like some of the quality of life stuff they added, like the crouching mechanic in Delta, the levels are not designed around the crouching mechanic. They're designed around the original system where you can't, the only time you can crouch is if you're not moving, and then once you start moving, you crawl or you walk or run. So, but all that being said, I don't have any footage for playing on my laptop, but with some optimized settings, using DLSS, with like a kind of a custom DLSS setting that uses dynamic resolution, which I usually hate dynamic resolution, but actually in this case it actually works really well and doesn't hurt the experience at all. I'm able to get basically a locked 60 FPS. So I'm quite happy with that. For the laptop, still looks incredible, still 1440p. Yes, it's not, I mean, so it's not doing, it's not upscaling it to 1440p. Instead, it's doing a dynamic resolution where it goes as low as 25%, which sounds really bad, but it almost never does that. But that's the minimum that it would go down to for the dynamic resolution. And honestly, like, I've never noticed it getting bad visually at all. And I've only played probably like maybe an hour or two on my laptop versus my desktop or Steam Deck, but like it was never something that I felt like actually harmed the experience. So there's that. I'll definitely be playing it on my laptop tomorrow during my lunch break, without question. One thing I do want to note though that is annoying is that the settings are not per device. They don't save per device. And so while it does seem to do that mostly between Steam Deck and PC, it doesn't do it between the laptop and the desktop, or the laptop and the Steam Deck. And so the Steam Deck settings that I have, like, yeah, it'll do visually be different, but it'll still have that same frame rate cap. And the HDR doesn't work on the Steam Deck because it's bugged. And so if you have HDR on in gaming mode, then the game will not, you'll just get a black screen in the game. And the only way to fix that is to run it in desktop mode. And then that turns off HDR on its own, and then you can boot it up in gaming mode after that, and it's fine. So, Steam Deck. This is one where I actually have been very pleasantly surprised. I've actually been so surprised and so impressed with it. In fact, the footage that's playing right now is Steam Deck footage. And when you look at it, you might not even believe that it could possibly be Steam Deck footage because it looks really good. So this is another one where it is using dynamic resolution. It's on the lowest settings, except for there's one setting with the character hair where you can set it so that there's the only person who has hair strands displaying in the graphics is very specifically the main character. And then you can have it, you can do it even further low to main character low. So it's only doing hair strands for the main character. Everybody else just has more of a blob, not like to where it looks terrible, but it's not quite as like, there's no flowing elements to it or anything like that. But it looks good. So when you look at this, you will actually be surprised at how good it looks, even blown up from 720p up to 1440. It's shocking how good it looks, but it is using dynamic resolution once again doing the 25% on the low end and 100% is the standard. The frame rate cap is set to 30 FPS. There is no option to turn off anti-aliasing. And I tried doing 40 FPS. I tried a couple different things. When you do that, the dynamic resolution makes it look terrible. Genuinely terrible at frequent points. And it doesn't even maintain 40 FPS, so it's not really worth it, in my opinion. The 30 FPS, like, it was a little bit hard to get used to at first, but I got used to it quickly enough, and it's like, okay, it's a sacrifice for being able to play it natively on this handheld. And I'm genuinely impressed. Now, yes, Valhalla definitely runs better, because Valhalla I can do it without any dynamic resolution scaling and maintain 45 FPS very easily. And it still looks very good. But still, considering this is a brand new game, and it's running as well as it is on the Steam Deck, with, in my opinion, very little visual compromise, like the dynamic resolution, I have almost never noticed a time when it dropped enough to be noticeable. But it definitely, I mean, it's just, I'm very happy with how it runs on the Steam Deck. Now, is that going to be my primary place to play it? No. But I have put probably at least 5 hours into it on the Steam Deck over the course of a few nights. So that is saying something, and that's not streaming it or anything. That's just running it natively. So there's that. The one thing I will note that is kind of funny, and I'm also a little embarrassed about. So I had played it a little bit on the Steam Deck yesterday. I think it was just, maybe it was after work or during a lunch break or something. And then I decided to boot it up on my desktop later in the day. And of course, obviously visually it looks amazing. And it felt a little bit off to me, but it wasn't really like occurring to me. I was like, it's probably just me. And so, I play for like an hour or two, and then I go in and I'm checking something. I can't remember what exactly motivated me to check something with the settings, but it was still capped at 30 FPS. And it's like, oh, I knew something felt off. I mean, because of the fact that I had been playing for a bit at 30 FPS earlier in the day, I didn't notice it as much. If I had been playing at 60 and then gone back down to 30, then I would have noticed it. But going from 30 to 30, it wasn't that noticeable. And then when I uncap the frame rate again, it's getting over 100 FPS even in like very dense areas, and it's like, oh, that feels so much better. But yeah, a couple other things I do want to note. One, of course, I just accidentally fell off of a ship when I was trying to drop down. I actually fell all the way down and just died in this footage. But the game does add some extra stuff. There's not like a ton of stuff that I've noticed, but one thing it definitely did add was there's like what a lot of Ubisoft's recent games have done. They have some like online missions that just randomly generate that can show up at any time, and it's stuff. I don't know if there's any achievements tied to them or not. I would imagine probably there's some for like just doing a handful of them or whatever. they're not essential by any stretch for the main game. And I think they may have added a couple other miscellaneous things. I know there's supposed to be some more like story missions and that sort of thing, like related to the side characters. There might even be additional new side characters, but I'm not sure yet because I've only met one of the characters so far, and that was a character that was in the original version. So, but yeah, I haven't yet gone to see the assassins yet. And of course, the fact that there's no modern day stuff is both nice and at the same time a little weird, because, you know, the 2 times I played this game before on PC and then on Switch, of course, you know, it had all the modern day stuff, which I didn't mind necessarily, especially since there's enough like checklist type things to where it worked out nicely for me. Where, you know, it didn't bother me. I like the checklist stuff, but I also, obviously, it's the world for this, you know, the Black Flag portion that's not in the modern day is always the best part of the game across the board. So that has been very nice. And trying to think of what else there is to say on that front. Changes. So at least the default settings, while it can be pretty heavy on the HUD elements, you can modify it to have you can adjust it as you see fit to show some of the HUD elements you want to see, but not all of them, that sort of thing. And that's definitely helpful so that it's not quite as much. But I forgot how much stuff showed on the original game, how many HUD elements there were. The one thing that I do miss that this game does not have that the original had is a mini map, because I really liked that in the original game, because it definitely made it easier to like track down collectibles and that sort of thing. But you can set it at least to where, for when you have the compass up above, which they've been doing for a while on the games, and you can set it so that once you like identify, if you mark like a chest or whatever, when you look at the map, then it will show on your HUD where it is, at the very least on your navigation bar or your compass, and then when you get close enough, you'll see roughly where it is. So that helps. So the combat, that is one thing that is partially harder to get used to, and also is kind of nice because I've played the more recent games more recently. But with the combat, the one thing that I have to say is, for starters, it does use the R1 and R2 for attacking, like you have in the modern games, instead of using X and Y. And it has, you know, parry versus just the standard attack and counter. Enemies do have, in some ways, more health, but still, if you get the parry off, then you can still one hit them with a takedown. So then that ends up being, you know, basically the same thing. But like when you fight that assassin, the very first guy that you come across at the beginning of the game, and the original game, they definitely, you didn't do much to him. Basically, once you countered him, you could just take him down, and then that was it. Whereas this one, it kind of feels like, okay, you're actually fighting someone who's an assassin, and there's a little more to the fight. I mean, it's still pretty standard kind of fight, but at least it feels like he gets a little more respect, I guess you could say, from that standpoint. I still haven't quite gotten the parry timing down the best, and it's not necessarily because there's anything wrong with it. It's more just, it's different enough to where it's throwing me off somewhat, and I just mess up a lot. So I'm still not very good at the combat in this particular game. I'm better at it in like Odyssey and Valhalla than I am in this game. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else. That might be everything. Yeah, that's probably everything for now. I haven't unlocked all the different side mission things that you get later on, but I'll probably get that after I go to the Assassin's Bureau thing, where they like give me the Berserk and Sleep Darts or whatever it is that you get, and various other stuff added that you can do. And I haven't taken down any forts or anything yet. I've just done like one shark killing, and that was about it. So.
And that's the last game?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So while we're on the topic of Assassin's Creed 4, definitely glad you're enjoying it. So I know you said that compared with Metal Gear Solid Delta, they've definitely done more to this. If someone hadn't, or if someone, just was like, hey, I'm just going to get Assassin's Creed 4 original version because it's cheaper and I don't necessarily have the money to buy the newer version, would they be fine if they just got that one over, or would you still just recommend saying, hey, hold off, wait for Resync to go on sale and then get that one, or you say that's fine for now but you would want to go and play Resync later on, or just it so is that like?
Honestly, it's kind of hard to say. I mean, like, thinking back on like Metal Gear Solid 3 versus Delta, I definitely say with those ones, I would say the original is more worthwhile. That one, it's easier to say because there's just not enough differences other than it being a lot prettier to say, regarding it. With this one, I think it's a little bit harder for me to say because I think this one is definitely worth playing. But the original's still really good. And I guess my thought would be, if you've never played either of them and you don't mind waiting a bit and you don't think that you're going to be someone who would be like, oh, I'm going to play sorry, I forgot to mention some glitches because one of them's showing up on screen right now. The ship is invisible and you see all the pirate guys standing on an invisible ship. There have been a few glitches in this game, but I'll get back to that. But going back to answering your question, I definitely, I don't know, it's really hard to say you should wait for this one versus getting the original, but it is really, really well done. And I think a lot of it is just going to depend on whether someone would want to potentially buy the game twice, or if they'd rather just buy it once. Because I think in some ways it would be better to play the original first if you're going to play one, because then you get the full experience and it's going to run well on modern hardware and all of that. I should say assuming that you're playing it on PC or Steam Deck or something like that. If you're trying to play it otherwise, I guess you can still get it on like Switch or whatever, but then it's a little bit harder of a recommendation. Yeah, it's really hard to say which one's better. I mean, I would say that in my opinion, I think this version is better because it's not just about the visuals, it's also the quality of life improvements and that sort of thing. But the original is still really great. And so I think I would just kind of have to like talk through with the person and see, okay, what do you have available? What are your ways that you could play these games? Because, and how much of a snob are you about, higher frame rates? Because like if you're playing on a Steam Deck, you're not going to get above 30 FPS. At least not consistently enough to be worth it. I think this is one game where I would say if you're going to play it on Steam Deck, don't bother doing anything but 30 FPS, because 30 FPS you're going to get the best balance of visuals and performance with a very, very stable 30 FPS near locked. Whereas if you try to go above that, you're not likely to get a stable performance and it's going to look terrible. Absolutely terrible. So from that standpoint, I would say that. But if you are like really wanting to go as cheap as possible and still experience the main game, and then maybe somewhere down the line grab Resynced, then yeah, I would say the original one is definitely worth it, especially because you could probably get it very cheap. I mean, it is a very good game, and I still really love it, but at least as of right now, I'm more like, this is such an excellent game that I think it's well worth playing. And while I definitely would never tell anyone, I would say do not spend money on the microtransactions for all the extra costumes and stuff, because they're egregious. The actual game itself, I think, is worth $60. But obviously, if you're okay with waiting, if you wait a few months, it'll probably drop to 30. And I was going back and forth about that for a bit, and definitely was considering just waiting to get, waiting for it to drop. But then I decided, I really want to play this game, and I'm having such a good time with it that I don't regret having bought it. Of course, I did the same thing when it came out for Switch, and I bought the collection for that, although I think that was $40, and that included both Black Flag and Rogue, if I remember correctly. I didn't care for Rogue very much by the end, but Black Flag was worth it on its own. And of course, now you can get it super cheap, so...
Before I ask the next question, regarding Black Flag, said you were gonna go back to the glitches.
Yes. Okay. So of course there was the aforementioned ship glitch where just one disappeared, and this was in, I think it was after one of the early missions. It's like right after you get the Jackdaw. That this ship disappeared, and I don't know if it happened for anybody else, but it did happen for me, and it was just brief. And then once we got actually past that cutscene, then the ship was there, no problems. Definitely noticed a handful of times where like when you're dealing with NPCs in particular, usually not like proper cutscenes, but just the side cutscenes, the little brief ones, that characters' lips won't be moving when they're talking. That one can be a little bit distracting at times. Obviously there's the one that I'll mention that, I showed you the clip of, but I'm trying to think if there's been anything else. Most of the stuff hasn't been that bad. It's kind of like when you get an Ubisoft game fresh out of the oven like this, you're bound to come across some glitches, and most of them haven't been that bad. And some of them were just funny. Like the invisible ship was pretty funny. But the funniest one, my favorite, was after we had done a battle. I think it was after like I had done one of the battles where I boarded the ship. As we were sailing beyond that, in fact, oh yes, it was the mission where you learn about boarding ships. And as we're sailing back, Adewale is still firing his gun, but he's not holding a gun, and so he's just like firing a finger gun. There's a muzzle flash and everything, and the shotguns, the gun sound, the pistol sound, and he's just doing it over and over, like reloading, looking boom, boom, and it's like every single time there's a muzzle flash. It's fantastic. I love that. That was a very funny cutscene to have happen repeatedly. So yeah, that's really good stuff. Something I do want to note for anyone watching, all that's been playing so far is just Switch footage. Actually, no, I'm wrong. The beginning of it was splitting the Switch and... No, I'm not wrong. I'm mixing it up. So the initial clips that I was showing were side by side between the original version and the remake. The footage that's been playing since I said that it was playing, not Switch, Steam Deck footage, has all been Steam Deck. So everything that's been playing for like the past 10-15 minutes has all been just Steam Deck footage. Now there is a certain point when, if it ever gets back to looping to the beginning, where we'll actually show side by side between the Steam Deck and my desktop. And it's not the same scenes, but you could still see a definite, very clear visual difference, plus obviously a huge difference in frame rate, even if the video is only 60 FPS. So, but yeah, I'm just super, super impressed. Oh yeah, now it's doing side by side, but yeah, I am legitimately very, very impressed with how it runs on the Steam Deck, and I think the PC optimization is very good. It's not quite as good as Valhalla, but it's a better looking game than Valhalla 2. So, and it's about double the file size of the original. So the original I think was 35 gigs, and then this one's 65. So, which is to be expected when you have, significantly more detailed textures and everything else, and a lot more audio stuff included. I think if there's one nitpick I have that I really miss about the original that's not in this one, and I don't know why they didn't do this, but the original game, when you're in the main menu, it's playing the main theme. In this one, it's not. So instead of doing the da 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 dun 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 dun, and hopefully I won't get a copyright claim for that, because they are egregious in their copyright claims. But if they do, I'll just be like, I'm sorry, my singing was not that good. It didn't sound like the real music. But anyway, that's honestly, that's the one nitpick that I have, that I'm just like, why didn't you include this? It was so iconic, and it was like, sometimes I would just sit in the menu for a while and just listen to that song because it's such a great song. And you don't have it here. And I can't include music on the podcast, of course, because we will get a copyright claim, guaranteed. And even if I try to fight it, they'll say, nope, sorry, you can't have this music on here. Universal Media Group, we will not allow you to have this music here. Doesn't matter if it's fair use, you're not allowed to have it. So I don't even bother putting Assassin's Creed music in these at all.
Well, maybe that's what happened with the main menu. They copyright claimed.
They copyright claimed themselves. That's exactly what happened. They copyright claimed themselves.
One question regarding the combat, and this is something that I've heard about. Like through like one thing here and there, so I couldn't really confirm it one way or another. But I heard that the Assassin Blade had been removed from combat to an extent.
So
it's been altered.
Yes and no. Currently, it is not available to like you can't use it. You can't use dual Assassin Blades like you could in the original game. They are going to be adding that back in, as far as I know. Personally, I never really liked using those anyway in the original game. I always just used the regular swords. I do really like the pistol swords that they have in this game, because I don't think the original had it set up this way. But with this one, if you hold down R1 to do an attack, like normally it just does like a strong stab attack or whatever. With the pistol swords on this one, it actually fires pistol shots and doesn't use up your ammo. It's like, that's awesome. I love that. That's fantastic. It's like, hey, that's another way to get some free pistol shots in without using up your ammo. So.
Okay. Going back some, so for Salt and Sacrifice, I can't remember if you mentioned this before, and I was just really curious now, especially since, of course, you've mentioned this in the past, but you've said again how it's been random. Are the mages completely random, or is it just like you fight them once and that's it, or do they sort of respawn, or a different run respawns in an area?
So there are the named ones which you specifically hunt. Those ones are not random. There's just like you'll find like an altar thing, and then you'll activate the hunt for that mage. But then there are unnamed versions of those same mages that will randomly show up.
Okay.
And then you'll chase them and everything else.
Okay. And then for Demon Souls, just like a couple things I had noted. So of course you told me that you mentioned that on the Steam Deck, with the mod, you have been able to get 60 frames per second. What's the battery life for the Steam Deck when you're playing that?
Honestly, I didn't pay a whole lot of attention. I think it was pretty decent, though. I want to say it was like 4 hours for Demon Souls, but I'm not positive on that, because honestly, I wasn't paying super close attention. Next time I play, I'll try to remember to check that.
I think that's still pretty decent, all things considered, especially since it's you're running an emulated game, which is
Right.
extremely demanding on the CPU. So that's gonna
Yeah,
take
and
a
I
lot
don't
of,
think this
more
one's
effort.
nearly as demanding on the CPU, which is why you can get 60 on it without too much difficulty. And you don't have to like do any weird modifications or anything. It's just there's a patch available. You check the box, and then you have 60 FPS. But I forgot to mention the battery life for Black Flag. It might be as much as 2 hours, but I think it's more like an hour and a half. It's pretty bad. But it's like
I can
I mean,
imagine that.
it's like it's a brand new game,
Yeah.
and the fact that it runs it as well as it does. I mean, honestly, there's so many other games. Like I look at Horizon Forbidden West and how that runs on the Steam Deck, and that runs horrible on the Steam Deck. Like I put up with it for a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm getting 30 FPS, and then it started more consistently doing like 20 and lower, and it's just, and it didn't look good. And I mean, even with FSR, not turned on, it still didn't look very good, and then it just wasn't running well enough, and it's not even worth it. But Black Flag, it's like, yeah, I'm getting pretty close to a locked 30.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely a whole lot better. But it's definitely understandable as to how the battery lasts for Black Flag, but definitely Demon Souls is definitely a whole lot better than I would have expected, so that's definitely good. And then this one wasn't a question, but just a comment I had for Demon Souls is you really put Bilbo Baggins to shame. I mean, he went and just tried to steal from one dragon. You tried to steal from two.
Yeah.
So you definitely put him to shame. The dwarves should have hired you when they went to get the Arkenstone.
Yes, but Bilbo didn't have the advantage of being able to use save states or revive himself as needed.
You have the save state ring.
Yes. It began with the forging of the great rings. But there was one
right.
ring.
No, that's
Yeah.
Yep. Those were all my questions / comments.
All right. Good stuff. Well, once again, we're not doing news tonight because, as far as I'm concerned, most of the news is either extremely meh or it's just we're repeating the same stuff over and over. I'm getting tired of talking about this stuff. So instead, we're going to talk about some other stuff. And because of the fact that I still haven't thought of any topics, and I'm hoping that you will inspire me, why don't you start with your first topic?
All right. So these are these are topics, but they're also sort of more, I guess, questions, ideas. And so the first one has been based around just in light of all the different recomps we've had so far, especially how recomps have improved to the point that we're getting recomps for newer systems or platforms like the Xbox 360. So that being said, in a realistic sense, based on what we have so far available, what are 3 PC ports you would like to see be recomped next?
Okay. Well, I'm going to stay out of the PlayStation realm because of the fact that I've been talking about a bunch of those. We talked about that last week a bunch. So if we're talking about recomps that are not on the PlayStation side, not on the PS4 because we're not even close to that yet, not on the PS3 because we just talked about that. And you said how many recomps? Did you say 3?
Just I
Or
just said 3.
3 recomps or ports, okay. I would have to say that it would probably be more on... I guess I could start off on the Xbox side because there's not much on the Xbox side, but since we just got that PC port of Gears of War 2, Gears of War 3 would be one that I think would make a lot of sense. And because 4 and 5 are already on PC, I guess Judgment could go along with that, even though I've heard mixed things about whether that one's any good. I can't remember if that one was... I feel like people said that one was bad, but I still wouldn't mind having a port of it just to be able to play them all. But Yeah, so I would say Gears of War 3 would be the first one for sure. Secondly, I think probably this is kind of cheating, but I would love to see PC recomps of the Xenoblade Chronicles games. All of them. I mean, yes, that's a lot, but it's like those are fantastic games already. And of course it's great that, there's the updates for the Switch 2 that allow you to actually get 60 FPS, do 4K and all that, but having something where it's native and you can have the 4K 60 and all that without upscaling, without having, the bad upscaler, but actually just having it being like, okay, I can natively run it 4K resolution or, 1440p in my case, at minimum of 60, preferably like 120, 240, whatever. I think that would be fantastic, because especially if they could fix some of the problems, especially with Xenoblade Chronicles X, where even with the updates they've made, while it runs a lot better, the pop-in is still atrocious. It is just so bad. You'll run up and then suddenly something will appear right in front of you, or you're running through New LA and then you'll just run right through a car and stuff like that because there's no collision detection. Yeah. So that's what I'm gonna have to say. Really, I could go to a lot of different Nintendo games that would be great, and as it stands, I mean, with like N64 and GameCube and Wii and all that, and that stuff's gonna happen anyway. But it would still be kind of nice to see some of those. Really, I would just like to see the Switch ones get recompiled or ported. Switch versions of those, because those are the best versions in my opinion.
Now, have we... I don't exactly remember. Have we had anything regarding Switch decomps?
No, we just heard that was something that was potential.
Yeah.
I think that like Super Mario Odyssey was something someone was working on, but
and
I would definitely like to see that one. But I mean, I have Odyssey, and I loved Odyssey. It was a great game. I mean, obviously that's not. I don't have a PC version of it. I have the Switch version, and that one's actually one where I'm like, I would definitely love to see a PC port, but I don't absolutely need it because it already looks and runs really well. And I'm pretty sure it actually even got a free update for Switch 2. So it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, I could just play it there and I'd be perfectly happy with that.
Okay. I guess as far as on my end, this one probably is cheating a bit, or rather, it's not as critical since some of these games have already received PC ports already. But and of course I've mentioned this several times, but as far as just getting a native port from Microsoft, but I would love to have Rare Replay get a native PC port, just because of all the games there. Sure, not all of them are probably worth playing, but enough of them are present where I would say I would like to play this game or play these games. And like, so even with the games that have had a PC port from one way or another, like I think Banjo-Kazooie, that's had a native PC port, and Perfect Dark, I think, had a PC port.
It does have a PC port.
And I think maybe Jet Force Gemini, but I'm not 100% certain on that one.
Yeah, we had talked about that one, but I don't think that one actually does have one. I thought that it did, but I think I was just mistaken on that, because like I grabbed the there's a GitHub recomp tool that basically has a display. I mean, you can find all the recomps in this one thing, like all of them available to get the tool, and then you just have to provide the ROM and whatnot. And that was not one of the ones listed.
Okay.
There was something there that I was actually surprised about. There's one for Blue Dragon from the Xbox 360.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Like that one's ready? That one's like finished or available?
I just saw it was listed there. I didn't look beyond that, so I don't know. But that's one I would look into, because that's definitely one that's like, okay, that was a Toriyama game that was exclusive to the Xbox 360, never came anywhere else.
Yeah. Okay, you know what? That's probably gonna be like my second choice then, is Blue Dragon, because I mean I've heard that the game is good. It's just like you said, it's been stuck on the 360 and hasn't gone anywhere, and that's insane to think. And who published that one? Was that Microsoft or?
I think so.
Okay, that would explain a whole lot then, because I was saying if it's like, you know, if it was Square who published it or something like that, then, you know, I was like, okay, eventually they might want to go ahead and port that, but if Microsoft was the one behind it, it's like, yeah, that's not gonna see the light of day again, is it? No. But yeah, so I guess then that would be my second pick, is just because I've heard so much about that. And then third one, I've been really going back and forth about this because I'm not entirely certain how I would want this to be handled, or rather, this would be this would be Chink. It's kind of like two different things, but it would be either Metroid Prime Trilogy or Metroid Prime the games individually, just because while using it with a mouse and keyboard would be phenomenal, with that, I am just so accustomed to playing those games with a controller.
Yeah.
That I'm like, yeah, I will play 1 and 2 and then either try to finagle the controls with on a controller, especially, you know, if I'm using the trackpad or the touchpad on a Steam controller. It's like, okay, that helps a whole lot more. Or I'm like, okay, I could try doing that, or just at the end of the day, just use the mouse and keyboard. But
yeah,
that's definitely something I would like to see. I mean, of course, I've seen mods for the emulated versions where they've, you know, been able to get like 4 split screen, widescreen, and also you know, of course, use mouse and keyboard controls. But I just think having that native port, especially with higher frame rates,
yeah,
that would be glorious. I mean, like, especially since, did Prime Remastered get a Switch 2 update as far as like getting higher frame? Oh, okay.
I mean, I imagine that at some point it will, but it doesn't yet.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that was just exclusive to Prime 4 then, with the 120 frame rate?
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, so definitely would like to have those games get higher frame rates, because while it definitely runs well enough at 60, like, don't get me wrong, it's perfectly playable at 60. Having it run at 120, 144, 165 plus, you know, that would make it a whole lot better.
Yeah, for sure. I think if I was going to, I mean, like, of those options, I definitely, I would like them to do the Wii trilogy. I think that would be the best. I mean, the ideal would be do the Wii trilogy and then take the textures from the Switch version, apply them to the original, and then do the same kind of thing for second and third game. So basically remaster unofficially, because they absolutely could do that. And then you just basically, you get the great games with the additional remaster stuff. Then you also have the option of both playing with a controller if you want to, because it would, I'm sure that they could make it work without too much difficulty. And you could probably use like the touchpad on the Steam controller to do some of the functionality for switching beams and all that. You know, basically replacing what it does with the Wii, you know, using the Wii remote, pressing the minus button and pointing to the thing. But like the Wii controls for those games were phenomenal. Like, it really was a great experience. And I feel like, I mean, Prime Remastered was a fantastic remaster, remake, hybrid, I guess you could call it. Like, it truly was excellent. I mean, it really set the bar. But I do miss the quality of the motion controls from the Wii version, because the Wii version definitely had the better motion controls because it used the infrared instead of just being Motion Plus, where the Motion Plus, because it's the gyro-based thing, instead of having like a combination of gyro and infrared like Skyward Sword had, it just wasn't quite as accurate. It would lose sync pretty often, especially like I found, because I tried doing motion controls initially when I was playing Prime Remastered, But like when I was turning, it would lose the sync all the time, and it just ended up being frustrating to the point where it's like I didn't even bother doing it. After a while, I just switched over to dual joysticks and then played it the rest of the way with that. But I mean, being able to do that with mouse and keyboard, that would be perfect for mouse and keyboard. And I can think of, like, on my mouse in particular, one of the things that I always do, like when I'm playing the Doom games, for example, is there's a top clicker button next to my main left click that I use for, like, bringing up the weapon wheel. That would be perfect for Metroid Prime, doing that to bring up the selection for the different beams. I could just see that being superb. So that would be excellent if they could do that. But yeah, that's a good one though. The Prime games would be great. I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's already recomps for those being worked on.
Oh yeah.
But I really would like to see recomps of the Wii versions, because I think that would be the best. I mean, I would be curious to see how they would be able to, like, properly translate some of the controls, especially because obviously if you're doing it with the Wii version, you do have to mess with it a little bit more. Whereas, when you're doing the original Prime and Prime 2, then they were built with a controller in mind, and then the third one was not. But it would be easy enough to map those different options to other controls, button presses or whatever. Speaking of which,
Right.
this is just kind of a random side note, but not surprisingly at all, when I booted up Ghost of Tsushima on my PC using the Steam controller, just like on the Steam Deck, it uses the touchpad the same way as it is on the PS4 and PS5, where you swipe up and left and right to do those actions that are normally done on the touchpad on the DualShock and DualSense. So I thought that was neat.
Okay.
But yeah. There was a topic that I thought of, and I'm trying to remember what it was. It'll have to come back to me. I'll have to write it down whenever it comes to me. But what was your next topic that you had?
My next topic was more so, I guess, a reflective one, and going back to, or think about how our perspectives change over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you, apart from, say switching to PC, what have been the biggest changes for you in gaming? Like, what has been something where where something happened and it changed your perspective on something, whether it's like a genre, whether it's a type of, or maybe it's just a game series that you probably hated but you suddenly loved or enjoyed, something like that. It's like, what's something that like has been was a major aha moment for you, or just like caused you to switch your stance on something?
All right, well, I have two of those. The first one was playing Super Metroid, emulating that, which introduced me to Metroidvanias. And from there on, I was hooked. I loved it, and it's obviously, well, it's probably my favorite genre of games, period, is Metroidvanias. But the second was getting into Souls-likes, because I was against it for so long, and then Elden Ring, I gave it into the hype, I tried it out, I got hooked, and then because of the simple fact that I didn't have the ability to play it portably at the time, since the Steam Deck hadn't come out yet, or rather I hadn't gotten my Steam Deck yet, I grabbed the physical version of Dark Souls for the Switch and got hooked on that and played that for quite a while until I got my Steam Deck, and then I went back to Elden Ring, which I've never finished. And then I fell off of Dark Souls, didn't come back to it until a couple years later, got it on Steam, restarted, and absolutely fell in love with it. And since then, Souls-likes have also become one of my favorite genres. And have also made me willing, I mean, I guess on a similar vein with that, the idea of playing harder games was something that I was never in favor of, never playing on hard mode, until I had to do it for getting the platinum trophies in the Infamous games. Because before that, I was like, I don't want to play on hard. I don't like playing hard games. But then when I actually finally did, and then I got through it, and then I did it with the next one, and then I did it with the last one, by the time I was done, I was like, I actually kind of like this. This is kind of fun. It's definitely a lot more difficult, but I don't mind it so much anymore. I actually kind of look forward to it, and sometimes it's kind of nice. And then when I got Ghost of Tsushima at launch on the PS4, I went straight to hard mode, and that one didn't even have a trophy associated with the hard difficulty. I just did it because it was like, I kind of want to experience it this way because I felt like I got more out of it. And sure enough, I did. And then whenever I tried to go to a lower difficulty, I'm like, this isn't any fun. This is too easy. And so then it's just like, okay, I'll stick with hard. But then of course there are some games where I'm like, nah, I'll play on normal. I'm good. I don't need to play on hard, on the hardest difficulty. And then there's games like Kena Bridge of Spirits and Ys 8, where I went straight to the hardest difficulty because I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do it because there's an achievement tied to it, and I might as well just get it over with, and then I don't have to play multiple times. Or playing the Uncharted games, and because there were difficulty-related trophies tied to that, and I played Golden Abyss on the Vita, which I actually ended up having to do a second and third playthrough because I had originally played through it on normal. I might have even been playing it on easy the first time. And then when I decided, hey, I want to go and try to get the platinum trophies, I went straight to the hardest difficulty, which was, I can't remember which one it was that was available initially. But in order to get the hardest difficulty, you had to beat it on hard or, whatever was the next level up. And so then in order to get the actual... And then I played through it again on crushing, which I think was the hardest difficulty. And that definitely had its moments where I wanted to break my Vita. But I did complete it, and now it's like, playing on the hard difficulty can be pretty fun. And then other times I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'll just play on normal or whatever. Speaking of a quick side note, so you may or may not have seen the message. Earlier this evening, I think it was while I was making dinner, my son, who's playing on his Steam Deck, said to me, I beat the first boss in Pragmata. I'm like, wait, what? I didn't know you were playing that. and at first I was like, is he talking about something else? Am I misunderstanding him? I go over and look, and sure enough, he's in the cutscene right after beating the boss. When they're doing whatever they have to do, activating the terminal and stuff. And it's like, well, that's cool. And I asked him, what difficulty are you playing on? He said, I'm just playing on normal. It's like, oh, I just assumed you would play on casual because you don't have to play on normal. But yeah, he played on normal on his Steam Deck and beat the first boss. It's like, I'm proud of you, son. Good job. Now I just got to convince. Now I just got to convince you to try Dark Souls and get incredibly frustrated. But oh man, I will be so proud when it gets to the point that he's actually trying Dark Souls if he can get into it. And I don't expect him to like anytime soon. It took me a long time, but if he can do that, it'll just be like, that'll be a big proud dad moment for me. But yeah, anyway, now you can answer the question.
Yeah, so there were a couple different things for me. I think one of the biggest things was actually getting into and enjoying turn-based games. So like, of course I had seen turn-based stuff, and I had seen, one of the earliest turn-based games I had seen was Pokemon. Like my cousin, he had a lot of them, and I was like, all right, I've seen the TV show, and I'm like, all right, I see that, and then I'm like, what's this gameplay? Why is it like the way it is? And so I had seen that, I'm like, that doesn't look fun at all. And then also looking at Final Fantasy and seeing how that's turn-based, I'm like, that doesn't look fun at all. And then especially since I had the mindset of looking at, like, say, Advent Children, I'm like, all right, that looks cool, that looks fun. If that was a game, I would play that. And I'm like, why would I want to play something that's looks like that? Like, you're just staying around, just swinging around, taking your turn. I'm like, that's not fun at all. But then years later, I I think, Final Fantasy 3 on the DS, and that probably was my first turn-based game. And it took me a while before I started to think, all right, this isn't bad. But then once I played Final Fantasy 4 DS, then I was like, all right, you know what? I'm really enjoying this right now. And from that point on, then like later on, I got into Pokemon with I think it was Omega Ruby, or no, I'm sorry, Omega Sapphire. And no, it was Pokemon Y, then Omega Sapphire. And then working my way back, and then also working my way forward at the same time, that I started to also enjoy playing the Pokemon games. And then also, expanding further out into other turn-based games. And of course, last year we had a turn-based game, Expedition 33, yeah. That became one of my favorite games of all time. So I've really enjoyed turn-based games, and I was very adamant against them. I disliked them, but now I can really just appreciate them and just enjoy playing them. So that was a big turning point that didn't really start until I was probably around 14, 15, maybe even 16, just because of how I was toward them. But that was probably one of the biggest things. Another major change shift that I had was probably okay, this one is this one is also partially pushed because of PC, but I won't say it's PC, but just expanding my horizons outside of Nintendo, just because I was adamant about not owning any device or playing on any other device that wasn't Nintendo. And I mean, even though I wanted to get games that were on PlayStation consoles, I was like, I don't want to get a PlayStation because it's not Nintendo. Even though I went to those games, and I even found a way to justify having an original PS1, which my friend got me in college, which also happened to have Final Fantasy IX, which I think which probably really opened my eyes to how good the games could be later on. And I mean, Final Fantasy IX, in my opinion, rivals my love for Final Fantasy IV. So I have a hard time deciding which one I like more. Granted, I haven't finished 9 yet, but from what I played, it was just so good that I was just like, I automatically feel like it just competes with 4 for my my favorites. But I justified saying to myself, regarding having the PS1, I was like, well, technically, this was going to be a Nintendo PlayStation device console originally, so I'm just justifying that. But having that kind of mindset really shut the door on all the games that have been put out there over time. And it's like, okay, sure, some of these games probably could have been ported to a Nintendo platform, but at the same time, there have been a whole lot of good games out there that I missed out on. And granted, of course, I would have had to have bought another console, or got my parents to buy me another console, so that obviously played a role in that. But still, when I could get other consoles myself, it was like I limited myself intentionally, because I was like, I don't want to get a Nintendo console. So starting off, I guess, with PlayStation, and then of course later on PC, it helps me to understand that there are restricting yourself, having that fanboy mentality really restricts you. But once you let go of that mentality, it opens up a whole new door of possibility. And then the last big shift for me, and of course this is partially due to PC, but it was really just getting over my mindset of there's no big difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. And I remember the very first time I truly actually experienced that was on my first gaming laptop, where I was playing Batman Arkham Asylum. And on my old rinky-dink laptop, I was probably running it at around maybe 24 frames per second or something like that. Now on my current laptop, I was running it at like 30 frames per second on battery mode. But as soon as I plugged in the power adapter, then I was like, whoa, wait, why is the game moving so fast right now? I'm like, whoa, wait, what is going on right now? And then I'm just like, this is insane. I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I have never seen this happen before. And then later on, I'm realizing this is 60 frames per second. It was running at 30 on like battery mode, but once it was actually running on, AC power, then it got the full capabilities. It was running at 60. I'm like, so this is what people have been talking about, 60 frames per second being, a gold standard. I'm like, wow, I was so wrong all these years by saying like it doesn't matter. So like that was probably one of the last big epiphany moments for me where I just like, wow, this is a huge drastic change. So yeah, those were the things that have been where my stances have definitely changed. I would say for the better.
So have you ever played Final Fantasy IV any version other than the DS version?
I played the Game Boy Advance version.
Okay. All right.
Later
good.
on, yeah.
So then you got basically the original experience, more or less. So
yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, because I went to get I was just saying, I went to get it on SNES, but some of the prices I saw for the original cartridges were kind of high, and I was like,
the GBA version is much better than the SNES version, because the SNES version in the US was the easy type from Japan that was ridiculously easy and had fewer features and stuff, and yeah, like it's because that's the first way I played it, was emulating the SNES version, and then I later bought it on PS1, and I had bought the GBA version. Unfortunately, I didn't keep it, which I regret, but yeah, that game is fantastic. And like, I liked the DS version, and I still have my copy of the DS version, and I have it digitally backed up on my 3DS as well, but plus the GOG version, and I can't remember, I don't think I have it on Steam. I think I just have it on GOG, but I mean, like, the DS version's great, but the original version I think is still better. And the Pixel remaster, the little bit that I played is just like, oh, this is nice, especially because it's just like, I love that soundtrack anyway. And of course it's, re-recorded for the Pixel remaster, and so it's like orchestrated, and it's like, this is really nice. I need to go back to that at some point. I kind of want to just, like, one of these days, grab my Switch OLED and then put in the Pixel remaster cartridge and boot up Final Fantasy IV or 6 or whatever, or maybe finally go back and actually play the earlier Final Fantasy games, because like I played a decent chunk of 1 on the PS1 version, and I never got very far into it. I just got stuck because there's a lot of grinding I need to do, and I didn't feel like doing that. I've never played 2, at least other than maybe 10 minutes or something. 3, I think I might have tried emulating a fan translation of the original NES version at one point, but I never really did much of anything with that. And then I have the DS version, the remake, on GOG, but I don't believe I have it anywhere else. And yeah, that one I haven't really played. 5, I played a decent chunk of emulating as well. And then I think I might have tried it again on PS1 when I bought that, which I believe I still have. But I never got super far into it. I know my younger sister beat it, but I didn't beat it. And then, I mean, 6 I played through a couple times. First the Super Nintendo version, then the PS1 version. One of which was emulated, the other one was the physical copy. And then I have, but I also bought it on as a PS1 Classic and on the PSP and or Vita, and I have it also on Steam, I think. Maybe not. I can't remember. I get some of these digital ones mixed up in my brain, but obviously then I have the Pixel remaster for that. And then 7, 8, 9, I played all of those on the PS1 and PC. Although, well, 9 I haven't played on PC, but 7 and 8 I played on PC, and I still have my CD-ROM version of 7. And then I played 10 a couple times, PS2, and then on Vita I played 12 a few times, PS2, and then PS4, and then a decent chunk of the Switch version, and I have it also on PC. And 13 I played on PC. Well, I have it on PS3 where I played a little bit and then I got stuck. And then I played through it all the way and beat it on PC. And 14 I haven't played. 15 I played only a little bit. 16 I haven't played. So anyway. Kind of all over the place, but yeah. Anyway. Final Fantasy IV is great. I liked 9 a lot, and I played through it like probably 3 or 4 times, but like mostly the PS1 version, and then I got it on as the PS1 Classics version, and I got most of the way through, but I was trying to 100% it, and I could not beat Ozma, so I have never beaten that because that's a super boss, completely optional super boss, and I've never beaten him. But because of that, I never finished playing all the way through it. And I have it physical and I think digital also on Switch, along with 7, 8, and 9. In fact, I have all of the, every Final Fantasy up through 12 on the Switch physical. Because of the Pixel remaster being all the games on one cartridge, first 6 games. So yeah, Final Fantasy was definitely another one that got me really into turn-based RPGs. I mean, I played Pokemon before that, and I really enjoyed Pokemon, but I think it was definitely Final Fantasy that really got me into turn-based RPGs. And then I played a bunch, especially during the PS1 era. So, let's see here. I'm positive I had a topic. This one was more kind of just like a side thing, and it was just it's semi-related to the RPG topic, and it's kind of a news story, but I don't want to get too much into it. So there's Square Enix is putting out Switch 2 versions of both Octopath Traveler games, including you can get a bundle that includes both, and Final Fantasy X-10-2. 10 and 10-2, it's just improved visuals, basically. No change to the frame rate, still just 30 FPS. That's what it is everywhere. It's only 30 FPS, even with the remaster. Octopath Traveler 1 and 2 have full, improved visuals, improved frame rate, all that. Like, it's basically what you get on the Steam Deck, but on the Switch 2. But there's no upgrade path. And same goes with Final Fantasy X and X-2. There's no upgrade path. So if you want those games, you have to buy them again. And I just was like, Square Enix, why do you have to be such a butt face about this? And I mean, I know it's probably because of the fact that they know people could then just buy a cheap physical copy of those games and then pay a small upgrade fee. But it's like, come on, guys. I mean, even Ubisoft will let you buy Hogwarts Legacy, for the $10 or whatever that you can get it on the Switch when it's on discount, and then pay the $10 upgrade fee to get the Switch 2 version. But Square Enix, no, we're not going to do that for you. Because I was like, oh shoot, if they'll let me do an upgrade on the Switch 1 versions of Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, I might even consider doing that. I mean, at least if it wasn't too much, but the fact that they don't even have an upgrade path, it's like, nah, that's okay. I'll just play it on Steam, where, it's already better by default.
That's That's insane. And I mean,
It's
imagine
like, brother,
being
brother,
imagine being a day one, you know, a customer of the game. You know, imagine,
Right.
being, and then it's like, all right, here's your reward for, supporting us at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
If you want the improved version, pay full price for it, which is like,
I mean,
it's
I
insane.
don't think they're as expensive as they were back then, but it's still too much. I mean, I don't know what they're charging. I think it's like 10 and 10 2, it's $50. And it's like when I bought the Switch version of those, it was $20. I mean, granted, it was discounted, but Octopath Traveler 1 and 2, I bought them both when they came out individually, and they were $60 a piece. But like I wouldn't pay full price for that. I don't care that much about having a Switch 2 version. Like a small upgrade fee, I might consider it, but no thanks. Okay, so here's a topic question for you. If you could have one game, or what one game, either something that, and I mean, I guess you could say it for one for each of different platforms or whatever. But if you could have one game brought back, a game that is essentially lost to time, that it's either a game that has been delisted and it's not possible to get apart from like piracy, or something that was on like an earlier console that you really loved, that once again the only way you can do it is by emulation. But if you could have a current day PC version of that game, what would it be?
All right, so it's gonna have to be either a combo pack of the Transformers Cybertron games, War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron, or it would have to be a combination. Well, honestly, both of these choices are really Activision games, or it would be a, I guess, combination of Activision's Spider-Man games. So Web of Shadows, Shattered Dimensions, and I think there was a third one they made, but I can't remember what it was. I just remember Web of Shadows and Shattered Dimensions. But like, those would be the games I would like, because those games, now, I mean, I have Fall of Cybertron. I bought that. I mean, that I probably paid more for that key than I should have, but I have that one, but I haven't been able to find War for Cybertron, and the Spider-Man games are just like completely unavailable. So like, if you're going to try to, the only way to really get them is to either, sail the 7 seas, or just, find a version that was on console. And unfortunately, with the news that PlayStation announced, like, that has actually caused the prices for used PS3 games or PlayStation games to go up on the resale market. So those games will probably have high demand there. But those are games that have been, I mean, I've heard good things about the Spider-Man games, but I've wanted to play them, but I just couldn't, because again, also I just didn't have like a PS3 or Xbox 360, and also I was on PC at the time. So those are games that I've heard are actually great. Maybe not as good as Insomniac Spider-Man, but it's still there. I've heard good things about them. And the Cybertron games, Fall of Cybertron, from what I've played so far, has been great. And I've definitely enjoyed it, but I feel like if the games were, remastered for modern platforms, given the ability, I know at least, I'm pretty certain that the Cybertron is capped at 60. So if like the games were able to, have higher frame rates, maybe have better quality of life controls and stuff like that, it would probably breathe new life into the games, and just get people to maybe even just go back and enjoy those games, especially if they missed out on them. So, I kind of have, in light of the Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee being remastered, I'm sort of going to have a renewed hope that, okay, maybe if that game can be brought back from the Abyss, especially considered Toho is very protective over the Godzilla IP, maybe, I mean, I don't know who would have to be to jump through all these hoops with Marvel and, Activision, and especially since they're now owned by Microsoft, and I know there's just like a whole lot of hoops to jump through, and I mean, I don't know if there's any special thing with Sony because of if there's any special video game licensing agreements where like only Sony can use Spider-Man. Granted, Spider-Man was in Marvel Ultimate Alliance on the Switch, so like I don't know what's up with that, but granted he was also in Cosmic Invasion recently, so like maybe it can happen, but I just know there would be a whole lot of red paper to go through, or I'm sorry, red tape to go through. Yeah. So yeah, those would be games that I would be interested in having and being brought back.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, and I was reminded because it was actually something that I forgot to mention of stuff I played this week because it was so brief that I played it, but something that I actually would like to see brought back would be the Metal Gear Acid games. And I actually I played a tiny bit of the first one because I was going through and I was reinstalling the various emulation titles that that I already had the files on my Steam Deck, and it was like or they were on my micro SD card, and so but then when I did the whole reset thing before all that stuff got uninstalled, and so I did end up getting a chance to play a little bit of that and just kind of experiencing it just barely, which I do want to mention with that. I can't remember what setting it was, but there was something I did wrong with the settings, because you can modify it to make it run a bit better and be higher resolution than it was on PSP. And initially it was running at 15 frames per second, and I'm like, this is terrible. Why is it running so bad? And I thought, oh, it's just a PSP issue, but there has to be a way to get 60, because I've been able to do that on other PSP games. And then I watched someone's footage on YouTube, and they were getting 60, and so I couldn't figure out what it was, and then I messed around with something, and I figured it out that I had just done something wrong with one of the settings, and then it was running at 60, no problems. But so yeah, I would like to see these games brought forward, because right now they're just in the abyss. The only way to get them is emulation. It's the only way to play these games, and like I would be all for a native PC version. I know it's a completely different style of game compared to the other Metal Gear games, but it's the type of thing where I would be happy to give money for it, especially knowing that it is a Kojima title. Similarly, I could say the same with Metal Gear Portable Ops, because that's another one where it's actually supposed to be a pretty decent game. It just runs horrible, and it's supposed to. I mean, it has some issues from everything I've heard, but still, like, I would be very interested in having those brought back from the abyss. But more significantly than any of those, what I would love to see is the Xenosaga games brought forward. Because once again, you can play them through emulation, and emulation, works perfectly. It's not a problem from that standpoint, but I would much rather get physical versions of these games, because these are some of Monolith Soft's games, and I love Monolith Soft. I love the games they make. I love the stories they tell, their music, and all of that. And like, I have them on the Steam Deck to where I can emulate them, and I'm happy to do that if that's my only option. But I'm not going to spend what it costs, paying a scalper to get a copy of it today, because it's rare and it's just exceedingly expensive. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but my local used game store, and I'm going to talk about GameStop, but it's just like a mom and pop type shop. They had the trilogy of the Xenosaga games, but it was $400 for that trilogy. And I'm not spending $400 on that. No. Absolutely not. I know it's rare, but it's like, the developer's not getting any money from me anyway. I'm not going to spend $400 on a game that I don't need when I can just emulate it for free. But if they did an official physical release of it, even just bringing it to Switch, which would make the most sense, since Monolith Soft is owned by Nintendo, I would happily buy it. I would be very happy to purchase it because I would love to have physical version of those games, whether they're all on one cartridge or, you know, something to that effect. Of course, I could see Nintendo being like, oh, we're going to release them one cartridge for each game, and it's going to cost you $60 or $70 or $80 a cartridge. At that point, I'd be like, no, Nintendo, you're not getting my money. But if they put all 3 games on a single cartridge, even if they charge $80 for it, I'd be like, okay, for 3 big games on one cartridge, I could do that. 70 would be ideal. 70 would be better. 60 would be ideal. But is that going to happen? Probably never. Of course, they did do the Baten Kaitos games as both games on one cartridge for $60. I think I got the physical for, I want to say it was it was $30 or $40. I can't remember, but it was reasonable. So there's that.
Yeah, when you mentioned Metal Gear Acid, and also Portable Ops, it really made me wonder why those weren't a part of Metal Gear Solid Collection Volume 2, because considering how many games, and sure, they weren't all to the same, degree or level as Metal Gear Solid 4, considering how many games you had in the first collection, it sort of made sense to me, why not just put those games on there as well, because you only really just have those 2 games. You have Peace Walker and Solid 4.
Well, then you also have the Game Boy Color game, which is
true.
Exceedingly rare. You can't buy that. You can emulate it, but you can't buy it anywhere. Well, other than
that is true.
Either getting a bootleg copy or spending a boatload of money.
Yeah. So I stand corrected on that end, but I still think they could have added those games there as well, because if they're going to make, say, a Volume 3, what are they going to do? Just put
they
Acid 1 and 2 and
probably put the Acid games, maybe Portable Ops, and then the Metal Gear Solid 5 collection. Which, for me, that would be great, because I don't have to buy the whole collection. I can just buy the separate pieces, because I already have 5. Obviously, they're not going to do anything to make it any better unless they decide to actually finish up. You take all the unfinished content and finish it, and then add it back in, and then it'd be like, ooh. I wouldn't spend $60 on it, because it's like, I'm not going to replay the entire game just for this little bit. I'd probably just watch the cutscenes on YouTube, the finished cutscenes, because I've already seen the unfinished versions of the cutscenes. But yeah. But if they said, like, hey, if you already own the games, you can get this additional content for free, or pay $5 and you can get this extra mission, and be like, okay, I don't have to replay the game. I can just boot up Phantom Pain and do the remaining missions and see this last, conclusion or whatever. But yeah.
That's definitely a good choice, and also with the Xenosaga games as well, since those are pretty much going to be lost to time, unfortunately.
All right. Well, it is getting pretty late. Did you have any other topics, or was that it?
I think that's good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get into our recommendations and dissuasions. Why don't you start us off?
All right. So my recommendation is going to be, so in Pal World, there is a Pal that is a mimic type. So you essentially just find a random chest in the wild, or that can spawn at, and these are really just Pals that are disguised as chests. You can catch them. The problem is you have to actually attack them, because their catch rate is extremely low. But the problem is, as soon as you damage one, it'll immediately run away, and it runs away faster than you can catch up with it, even if you're riding on a fast Pal. So the key here to prevent them from running away is to build a wall surrounding them.
Nice.
And then climb up on top of the wall, shoot it, and it'll just keep running into the wall, and it won't be able to go anywhere.
Nice.
And so if you just keep damaging enough, eventually you will be able to throw a sphere and catch it. And now, fortunately, I haven't had to do that too many times, but when I have tried to catch it and it didn't stay in the sphere, I realized I probably should have just built the wall around it the first time around. So if you do that, it makes catching them a whole lot easier.
Nice. Yeah, that just makes me think of like some of the creative solutions you could do for puzzles in Breath of the Wild, because of the fact that they had such an open system in terms of, you know, your options. I'm sure you remember the island that you could go to in Breath of the Wild where it would basically take away all of your gear and then you had to just scrounge in order to complete the island. So I decided to take advantage of what the game would allow me to do. So I went there in a raft, or maybe I swam there. I don't remember. I guess it was probably I went there on a raft. And then I dropped all of my gear on the raft on the beach. And then I got off and it's like it took away all my gear. So then I just went back to the raft, grabbed all the gear, and then I was equipped and was able to get it completed. Or there was like one that I was really proud of. It was like one of the shrines, and there's a part where you have to there's like hanging spiky balls on chains, and you have to use, I can't remember the name of the ability, but you know, basically where you like you use it so that the you move the ball and then it swings back and forth, and then you just have to go through it as it's going through, or you can stop time as it's going through and that sort of thing. But instead what I did is, because they were hanging on beams, I used the magnesis thing to loop them over the beams so that basically it made the chain shorter so I could just walk directly underneath it. And I mean, this isn't me tooting my own horn or anything. It's just saying, you know, I love it when games give you options to be able to do things thinking outside the box. Yeah. And so that's always fun. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you could definitely do a whole lot of stuff with the Breath of the Wild games, and they sort of allowed you to do more with Tears of the Kingdom, correct?
Yeah,
like
quite
you
a
could
bit.
do more crazy stuff.
It was crazy, the kind of stuff you could do with Tears. But, yeah. All right, my recommendation. First of all, I'm going to recommend Assassin's Creed Black Flag Resynced. It is a fantastic remake, and I'm just really, really pleased with it. I feel like they did a lot of good stuff, and while I understand some of the things that people are saying, oh, they censored this or what have you, for the most part, like, I don't feel like there's anything that's egregious, and I really appreciate the fact that, unlike what they did in the last few Assassin's Creed games, they didn't take the main, you know, all the women that were in the game and put on an ugly filter on them. They actually made them look just as good, if not better. And, you know, like, I don't care necessarily about them covering up cleavage and that sort of thing. Like, I'm fine with that. I have no problem with that, even though I don't think that they did that as much. But I just appreciate the fact that they still made the women look the way that they're supposed to look. And it's like, okay, you know, she still looks pretty. She still looks the way she's supposed to look. I'm especially impressed with what they did with one of the characters that I'm not going to mention because it's kind of a spoiler. But if you've played the game, you'll know that there is a certain character that you didn't know was a woman initially, and then you found out that it was a woman. And what they did with that particular character, I have been impressed with. Like, there's been a couple spots where, even though it hasn't been revealed yet about that character, where you can still see that there is some beauty underneath, and that it's, of course, I've also seen some screenshots of later on when that character's not pretending to be a man anymore, and they legitimately, you know, look like a beautiful woman. And I just appreciate that, because it's like, you're not trying to make them look like men, like in Valhalla, where you had friggin' ugly, as I call her. And yeah, it doesn't seem like they've, at least so far, I haven't come across them inserting any other stuff. But also, I just gotta say, the writing in this game is really good. Like, I'm so much more impressed with the writing of the dialogue and everything in this game. And obviously it was written, over a decade ago. So before millennial writers got in and started trying to be Joss Whedon without having any of his talent, and writing their terrible stuff. But yeah, the writing is legitimately good. Like, the dialogue is really good, and I'm just blown away, especially after having played so many modern games recently and seeing the difference between how games were written back then versus how they're written today a lot of times, and quite impressed. Another recommendation. If you are going to try and play Black Flag Resynced on the Steam Deck, go to the Steam Deck HQ site and follow their recommended settings. Those settings are really good because you can get that pretty much locked 30 FPS and the game looks a lot better. The default settings, from what I can tell, when you just boot up the game the first time, are not great, but it's very easy to change the settings. It'll take you all of a couple minutes, and then you'll be playing the game and you will be pleased with it, assuming you're okay with 30 FPS. Lastly, I'm going to recommend in Demon Souls, both in the PS3 version and in the PS5 version. If you want, when you get to the tutorial boss, the Vanguard, try your best to get behind him and only attack him from behind. Because while it is technically possible to dodge his attacks and beat him from the front, you are going to have a much easier time. And if you go behind, and on top of that, there's also the reality that because if you lose the fight, you don't get another chance until later in the game. If you really want to beat him at the very beginning of the game, get behind him and attack him. All right. Dissuasion.
I'll have to keep that in mind. I'll have to keep that in mind because I really feel like I want to go back to playing Demon Souls, so I'll make a note of that. All right. So for my dissuasion, it's going to be: do not buy any of LG's current monitors or TVs. Particularly with their monitors, they have an auto download for essentially spyware, which happens as soon as you plug in the display port. So it's not like you download any files or patches. It happens automatically.
Wow.
As soon as you plug it in to your graphics card in the display port, it automatically downloads it from the internet without you going through anything. So if you have any type of a DNS filter, it will still go ahead and do that. Additionally, their TVs have been sort of spyware where they have been caught just like randomly listening to you because they have the I don't know what they have with the smart TVs and talking features and voice commands and stuff. It has been shown that they have been listening subtly to you in the background, so there's been concerns there. So I would definitely recommend not buying any of their current stuff right now because it's just very suspicious.
Yeah, that's really good to know. I mean, I haven't bought... I wasn't planning on buying a new TV anytime soon, but knowing that, I'm like, yeah, I've typically liked LG's products. Like the TV that I have back here is, it's a dumb TV, and it's like a probably 2007 model or something. I got it in 2009, shortly before I got married. Picked it out with my dad. But, that one, of course, I'm not worried about because it's, it's a dumb TV. And I think... our microwave is a fancy schmancy microwave. I don't know if it has any feature like that, but if it does, there's nothing I can do about it now. It's never been hooked up to internet. Well, that's not true. It has been hooked up to the internet. So I got a controller with an app for the brief amount of time that I did that. But yeah, I might actually have to see if I can do something to revert it or whatever, or at least check and see if there's any possibility that it could have a microphone built in that would be listening in on conversations, because that's not so nice. But yeah, that's good to know. Very good to know. All right. My dissuasion is going to be on Black Flag Resynced. Do not try using HDR when you're playing on the Steam Deck, at least not until they fix it. Because even though it should be able to do HDR, because the OLED does have HDR and it works really nicely, it does not work on this game. I've heard that if you use Proton Glorious Egg Roll, Proton GE, that it will work, but I was having some issues getting that, and so I don't have GE currently on my Steam Deck, and I haven't tried that yet, but maybe by next week I'll have tested that out, and then I can say for sure if that works.
What, out of curiosity, was there a particular version of GE that was mentioned, or just in general
No,
that it
just
should work?
mentioned GE.
Okay.
All right. Where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. I had, of course, the one video that I wanted to record, but I almost feel like there's another topic I wanted to get into, so I'm really torn, but that also depends, again, on which I feel like actually recording and doing first. So we'll see what happens on that end. But I do also have my other channel, Justin's Bible Blog. That's at Justin's Bible Blog. Of course, I've mentioned that I've been working on the current video, and it's close to being finished, but I just have to go back and clarify this one point, and then after that I have to just re-record it and then edit everything and upload, which shouldn't take too long, but just a matter of getting that part done. Actually, this thing is just trying to figure out what I want to say first, but then after that I'll just get everything recorded and upload it. But yeah, once that's up, that will be up, and yeah, that's everything I have planned for right now.
All right, good stuff. Well, on my end, you can find me on my YouTube gaming channel at TheFrozenGamer87, and for once I finally have something new on the channel, which is my video discussing the downsides of PC gaming. And of course you can check that out. It's only about half the length of the Why I Love PC Gaming video, and I really don't spend as much time talking about... there's a lot of talking in between the points to where that's the reason why it's 47 minutes long instead of being significantly shorter than it would be if I just simply stated the points without any elaboration. But if you are a PC gamer especially, and even if you're not, it's a good video to watch just for the sake of... watch or listen to, just for the sake of kind of understanding from the perspective of people who actually game on PC what the actual downsides are, instead of it being like the typical console fanboy talking about what's wrong with PC and getting almost everything wrong because they have no idea what they're talking about. So it can be informative if you are considering PC, and also informative of how you can work with the downsides, and that a lot of it is really just having to learn new things more than anything else. So there's that. Of course, there are the YouTube channel and Rumble channel for the podcast. On YouTube, that's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can still find us there. The video version of the podcast goes live every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues. The audio-only version goes live every Friday at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring technical issues, on all major audio podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and others. And that's everything on that end. Of course, if you'd like to contact us, you can send an email to theorangeboxpodcast@gmail.com, or you can comment on the video version of the podcast on YouTube or Rumble if you have any comments, questions, or want to tell us to Persona 3 ourselves. So, that is everything. Last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
Well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Xeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast. And until next time, Finger guns. Orange Box Podcast. Out.